I mean, there's nothing that anybody could say right now that's going to make me feel too good about anything we're doing. But we have to stew with this for 2 weeks.
Yes, they do. Welcome to A Few Extra Bucs, everybody. It's our podcast here on pewterpirates.com. DIrk Koetter, all about accountability after this one. Didn't hold back at all. We will get into his post-game press conference. But first, we'd like to thank our title sponsors, House of Brews in Lutz, Florida, on the corner of Northdale, Mabry, and Van Dyke, and, of course, Sea Dog Brewing Company. Two great locations, Treasure Island on the beach and, of course, in Clearwater. I have to bring in my two partners in crime, our producer, Justin Thomas, and our Buccaneer insider, Roy Cummings. First, Roy, DIrk Koetter not holding back at all after this one, huh?
No, and I'm not surprised, really. I mean, look, much to a lot of fans' chagrin, he is not going to fire everybody, including his defensive coordinator, Mike Smith. But, yeah, he's not holding back. I mean, there's just he's right. There was very little to like about this one from a Bucs perspective. And where do they go from here? Man, I don't know. This team really needs that 2 weeks to try to figure some things out, obviously, on the defensive side of the ball. That's where the problems are. They didn't get much done on offense today either, but that's because they were just playing from behind for so much. It was just an embarrassment from the defensive side.
Justin Thomas, our voice of reason, can you give me one word to describe this game?
Really bad. That's more than one word, but
yeah,
awful.
It was.
How's that?
Well, DIrk Koetter summed it up as horrific, and I would think that word fits.
Horrific. That's very apropos. You know what's amazing, guys, to me is we all predicted the Bears would win this game, but we didn't predict 48-10, Roy. I mean, to me, for a football team that started the season in such promising fashion with the expectations low, everybody was dreading the first 3 games, Roy, but they kind of forget about life after that, don't they, a little bit?
Well, yeah, they did. And, as excited as everybody got for those first 2 games in particular, and it's been said many times about the NFL, winning masks a lot of problems. And I hinted at it. I didn't want to be Debbie Downer in the middle of a 2-game winning streak and everybody excited, but I did hint at it in some of our previous podcasts here that, well, okay, yeah, they beat the Saints and they beat the Eagles, but boy, they sure gave up a lot of points and yards in doing so, and that's not going to be able to continue. Sooner or later, they're going to have to start running the ball. I think I wrote it last week in my breakdown of the game, which was also available on pewterpirates.com, that in essence, the Bucs won their first 2 games because they had a quarterback, hitting everything he threw, and receivers basically beating everybody that they were going up against. Well, that's not happening anymore, and you see the results 2 weeks in a row, and it is not good, and it's clearly not acceptable either.
The Buccaneers, the most points allowed through the first 4 games in team history, 139 points, and that's most in the NFL this year. In the last decade, only 5 teams have given up that many points, and one of them, oh yeah, the 0-16 Detroit Lions. So not good company right there. Here's DIrk Koetter after the game just saying, you know what, this is on all of us.
Based on that game today, we couldn't make enough changes. We should fire every person that was on that field today, starting with me. That was horrific.
Roy, for a guy on the hot seat, that's a pretty bold statement.
It is. It's almost like, be careful what you wish for here. It could happen. I don't think it will. Let's get that out of the way right now. I seriously doubt that, in fact, the Glazers are not going to fire DIrk Koetter. They're probably not going to fire Mike Smith. And one of the reasons you say that now is because who are you going to go get? Okay, we're 4 weeks into an NFL season. There are no head coaching candidates out there right now.
Todd Monken?
And you can't decide to fire a coach or a coordinator based on, 2 losses, even 3-4 bad games here. Let's not forget, the Bucs only gave up 21 points to the Eagles. But, yeah, something's got to change here. But, I don't think anybody loses their job over this just yet.
Okay, I get Drew Brees. I understand Ben Roethlisberger, but this is Mitchell Trubisky, who entered the game with 9 touchdowns, 10 career interceptions, and he had 6 touchdowns in the first half, Roy. I mean, I know the secondary is bad, and I know they're young, and I know Brent Grimes isn't a spring chicken anymore, but this is crazy to me. how bad they are.
It really is. And here's what happens, guys. When you combine lack of pass rush, except for one series, there was one series where they had a pass rush. You combine a horrible lack of a pass rush with a secondary where they cannot cover very well, number one. And number two, are blowing basic fundamental aspects of the game, just completely forgetting about basic fundamental aspects of the game. Combine that with a bad pass rush, and then have a day where the one strength you've got defensively, your linebackers, are just off as well. Well, this is the result, and that's what happened today. No pass rush, no ability to cover, and the fundamentals were completely broken down throughout on every aspect of the team. And then the linebackers just had a bad day. They really did. I mean, Quan Alexander. Here's the thing: it's hard to play downhill, straight ahead football when the offense you're facing is not allowing that. When the offense is getting the ball out quick and hitting these running backs out in space, the linebackers can't do what they do best in the Bucs case, which is run downhill and make plays that way. When they're chasing sideline to sideline, and the running back's already got 2-3 steps on it because there was a fundamental breakdown to begin with, and just looking at the play and reading it, well, this is what happens. You have results like today.
Well, defensively, you mentioned it, a lot of blame to go around, and DIrk Koetter would agree with Roy Cummings. Here's what he had to say.
This is 100% on us. This is 100% on us. I mean, give Chicago credit for making the plays, but we were not good in any aspects. And, as far as we could talk about what plays are called on both sides, and we definitely could have coached better today. There's no question about that. But Mike Smith didn't make any tackles or turn any guys loose on coverage. So that's we can make that. You guys can make those innuendos all you want, but we got beat in all aspects of football today, and coaching as well.
So DIrk Koetter and his staff, putting the blame on the coaches, the players, and saying obviously it's not all Mike Smith's fault. He wasn't out there making plays, but he was asked about the defense maybe trying to overcompensate because they struggled so much up in the Windy City.
Oh, no, absolutely not trying to do too much. I mean, we couldn't play zone, we couldn't play man. JPP did get the sack early. We hit him a couple other times, but that we couldn't do any. It didn't matter what we did today. They were running free, and he had time to do it. He put the ball on the money, so that's on us.
Well, you mentioned the linebacker. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There were two questions asked in that press conference today, and both of them were cliches. And I'm not knocking either of the reporters because I'll explain something here in a second. One of the questions was, did the Bears do anything differently than what you saw on tape, preparing for the game? That's a cliche, and I'll explain why that question was asked. And also, the next question, which was asked, the one that DIrk just responded to, was, was this a result of the guys trying to do a little bit too much defensively to make up for the mistakes early on and things like that? The reason those two questions are cliche questions coming from the media, and the reason the media kind of gets cornered into asking them, is because nobody has any answers after a game like this. The media doesn't have the answers, obviously. The coaches don't have the answers. The coaches literally can look at that and say, how in the world did that happen? Because if anybody thinks for a second that the Buccaneers or any other team in the NFL goes out and coaches itself or coaches off the players, so to play like that, they're wrong. So when a game like this is what the result is after a week of preparation, short week, long week, doesn't make any difference. No one can fathom it and understand how in the world did that happen. And because it's so ridiculous, the media asks questions that they're just trying to get the coach, in essence, to, can you just respond to some guttural reference that I throw out there and tell us what happened? But the coaches don't have an answer either, because no one expected anything like this. It didn't look like this in practice. There's no reason that Mitch Trubisky should throw 6 touchdown passes against the Buccaneers, no matter who's on the field. But it happened, and nobody knows why. Looking at the tape probably won't give you any answers either. It was just a complete and utter fundamental breakdown on the part of everybody on the field, probably the coaches in the press box as well, calling it. And there was just no way anybody could stop it. It's one of those things that just it gets out of control and you can't do anything about it. And that's why, when questions are asked, did they do anything differently? Well, the answers aren't very good. And when questions like, did somebody were guys trying to do too much? Again, the answer is no. That's not the answer. We're trying to do anything to stop them, and we couldn't do anything to stop them. So it's a real weird dynamic after a game like that, because nobody expected anything like that. You see it happen, and you really can't believe it. And the coaches don't have any answers, nor do the players.
I will say this, though, yeah, it's always a challenge, especially if you cover a losing team where you lose games, maybe not in this fashion, but a lot of losses in a row. To me, that really shows your mettle as a reporter, because you have to find different ways to ask questions, not only in a press conference to a coach, Roy, and you know this, but to players as well who continue to struggle in the same fashion. But I don't know if you agree with me on this. I found, covering the league, and I've covered the Saints for a long time, and I know Sean Payton is always better after a loss than a win, because coaches are never happy. When they win, they don't want to, really go overboard with the success either. But I found generally coaches are better, even though they're not happy. They're usually better sound after a loss. And it is, as bad as this loss was for the Bucs, that was good sound from DIrk Koetter. It was heartfelt, and he wasn't happy. But do you agree with some of that?
Oh, yeah, I do. I often find in the NFL in particular, it's not that way usually with the National Hockey League or Major League Baseball. I haven't covered enough NBA to know, but only having covered the Magic for a year or two. So I can't say that. In college, I think it's the same way. You're right. Coaches are better after a loss because, well, number one, they're humbled. They can't be cocky about "we told you so." Nobody believed in us, which is another one of their cliches. But they're humbled a little bit, and they know they have to. They're responsible, and they've got to kind of say, okay, well, this is where we screwed it up today. But a game like this, again, like I said, you're not going to know it just looking at it, except for the basics, which we couldn't rush the passer effectively. We couldn't cover effectively. We couldn't tackle effectively. It looked like we didn't have any idea whatsoever. I mean, like I said, it's not like they took 5 days off preparing for this game. They put in 5 days of good hard work, and nothing came out the way it was expected to. In fact, I promise you that the Bucs went into this game thinking, okay, at worst, we're going to give up 23, maybe 28 points, tops. There's no way in a world we're giving up what we gave up to these guys, not this team. And when it happens like this, you just don't know. And the worst thing about it, I don't think looking at the tape's going to tell them either. I think the Bucs are everybody's going to talk about, we're going to spend the next 2 weeks trying to figure this out. You know what they're better off doing? Doing what you do in baseball and basketball and hockey. You throw this one in the garbage can and forget about it. Just forget about it. Just go back to work on the Falcons. You got 2 weeks to prepare. Just make sure that everybody's got everything that they're supposed to do down, and move on from this one. Move on from it quickly. Don't brood over it. Don't spend 3 days looking at the tape trying to figure out what went wrong. Everything went wrong. Just pick it up from where you were and move on.
Okay, let's talk about the offense. We've talked about the defense, and I know it's not all his fault, Roy, but Ryan Fitzpatrick obviously isn't the same guy he was in the first 2 games. Is Fitzmagic over? I mean, and to me, let's first talk about him before we get to Jameis. But how would you analyze what's happened to Ryan Fitzpatrick compared to what he did, coming out of the gates in this season?
Here's the dirty secret about Ryan Fitzpatrick. An extremely good quarterback when everything around him is working perfectly. Receivers are getting open. Protection is exquisite. Perfect. He's excellent when everything around him is going well. As soon as adversity shows up in the form of a hand in his face, a little bit too much pressure, he does what almost any quarterback does. He tries to do a little bit too much, tries to make a play where maybe there isn't a play, loses his concentration just a little bit. And by that, I mean he's focused on the right play and the right player and the right throw, but he doesn't go through the throw perfectly. You saw today where he had a little bit of pressure, and instead of getting the ball off cleanly and being able to step into his throw, he doesn't have the ability to adjust. in the throwing motion to avoid a disaster. And the pick that he had today, that was a result of that. And so again, the first 2 weeks, everything was great. Protection was outstanding. Receivers were running wide open. He had his choice of guys. The play calls were all good. Today, they were playing from behind the sticks all day long because of that defense. That defense was in their head the minute they went out there, number one. And then it got in his face. And as soon as it did, he changed. He was a different quarterback and nowhere near as effective as he was in the first 2 games. And that's the tough part for him. When everything's working really well, he's a dangerous guy. When it's not, you get results like today, which are mediocre at best.
All right, Roy. In the second half, if you're DIrk Koetter, I thought the obvious move was to put Jameis Winston because you knew it was going to happen at some point. And as bad as this game was, to me, the only good thing was this was a clear way to put him in because it was a bad situation. Maybe he would give him a spark. Do you agree with putting Jameis Winston in? And would he be your starter after the bye week?
Answer to the first question is absolutely. It was the right call. He needs the work. It was mop-up duty. There was no rallying this team. I mean, I suppose it could have happened, but it was unlikely. But no, it was a perfect opportunity to put Jameis in there, let him get some work. We haven't seen him. The team hasn't seen him, obviously, in 3 weeks plus. It was a real good opportunity for him to, get out there and get his feet wet again. Would I start him against the Falcons? I probably would. He's your quarterback. He's your number one quarterback. You've got to live and die at this point with your best, and if he is the best, so put him out there. They're going to need this offense to carry this defense this year, and you need a player who can make plays out of nothing, perhaps, because if the line doesn't get any better, you're going to see a lot of nothing. So he's going to have to do some miraculous things. He's got more ability to do that than Ryan Fitzpatrick does. He's got more of an ability to make something out of nothing than Fitzpatrick does. The concern is he often tries too often to make something out of nothing. He's got to remember to check that. But yes, I would go with
Yeah,
James.
I agree on both counts. I agree that was a no-brainer to put Jameis Winston in the second half, and I think you have to have Jameis Winston be your starter moving forward. Bob, what a difference a couple of weeks make for Ryan Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston. Here's what DIrk Koetter had to say about Jameis Winston after the game.
Towards the end of the half, I told the coaches that we were going to switch to Jameis. I talked to Jameis and Fitz both in the locker room at halftime, and a chance to get Jameis some real football. And we put Jameis in a terrible situation today. And I told him that. I told him that right off the bat at halftime that we're putting him in a bad situation. And I knew Jameis would go in and give us everything he had, and he did.
What do you think of that, Roy?
Yeah, I like the answer. He's right. They did. They put him in a bad situation. They basically handed him the ball and said, "All right, now go fix it." Everybody else put the team in this big, deep, ugly hole that we're in. Now go pull us out of it. And it was an impossible task. But Jameis Winston, he accepts those challenges. And I agree with DIrk. I thought he did a good job. Holding his own and giving the team a little bit of a spark, not much of one. He threw a couple of picks himself. Not a great day for Jameis, but again, he's trying to do way too much. Now that's a case where he was trying to do too much. But that's Jameis. When you're down, the way they were, that's what's going to happen. So, those things happen, and that's where they are.
And it couldn't be to me, a worse game to go into the bye week. Now you have to stew over this for the better part of 2 weeks. DIrk Koetter was asked how they're going to approach going into the bye week after a game like this.
Certainly not the way that we want to go into our bye week. Of course not. We got off to a hot start, and now, two losses in a row going into the bye week. But at the same time, it is one of 16, and I don't say that. I don't say that with any happiness in my voice. We stunk today in all facets.
I know it's only one game, Roy, but the Saints win. They're atop the NFC South. What a difference a few weeks make when the Bucs beat the Saints to open the season. But the Atlanta Falcons lose a tough game against the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Carolina Panthers are off. Being in the middle of an NFC South logjam that's not going to be easy, And it has to be tough for a team that is trying to bounce back from so many seasons of not making the playoffs and having losing records. You want your morale to be good during going into the bye week. It's just got to be a tough situation for not only this coaching staff, but the players. Your range of emotions from starting so strong to now dealing with all this and not being able to get back on the field soon and forget about it.
Yeah, tough spot. But two things. Number one, if I'm the Buccaneers, first of all, I think I might be the first to say this. 2-0 and that miraculous, surprising, stunning victory over the Saints and the surprising, stunning victory over the Eagles already seems like months ago, does it not?
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, the prevailing theme I heard from the locker room today was that's not who we are. That's not who we are. That's how I would approach the next 2 weeks if I'm the Buccaneers. I already said it, that if I'm the Bucs, I guess because you have to in the NFL, you got to go back and look at the tape, right? So go back and look at the tape tomorrow. Do that if you have to. But after that, my theme as the coach of this team would be that is not who we are. And we are going to prove to the NFL, and the Falcons are going to be the first poor slobs to face us afterwards. We are going to prove that that's not who we are. That has got to be the approach, the attitude that the Buccaneers take over the course of the next 2 weeks. They cannot spend 2 weeks talking about this game, thinking about this game, brooding over this game, harping on it. They have to move on right away and say, that is not who we are. There's no sense in us even bothering to look back at that game because that isn't who we are. And we're going to prove it to everybody. That's how you take this and get rid of it, put it behind you, and move on. You take 2 weeks and say, we're 2-2 at the quarter mark of the season. No one expected that to happen because everybody thought we'd be 0-3 after the first three. We're 2-2. We're ahead of the game. We're only one game out of first place in this division, and we can take over first place next time we play. We're going to show the Falcons who we really are. That's how you handle that situation if you're a team that got beat as badly as the Bucs today. Will they do it? I don't know. We'll see.
What an opportunity for Jameis Winston moving forward now. After the bye week, he can kind of reset his mind, reacclimate himself. He got his feet wet a little bit, albeit a terrible second half in terms of a situation to come in on. But what an opportunity for Jameis Winston right now.
Yeah, it really is. An opportunity for him to rally this team out of this little rut that they're in. And that's it. Let's not forget, it's a little rut. They're 2-2. Again, what I just said. Most people had this team 1-2, 0-3 at more than likely coming out of the first three. So at the end of the first quarter of the season, most people had them probably 1-3 at or at best 2-2. Well, they're 2-2. Okay, they've proven they can score points. They've also yet to prove that they can stop anybody really. So they got a couple of things to work on. And but yeah, Jameis Winston, big opportunity for him to win back this team, win back some fans. Show that he's a better player than a lot of people want to give him credit for. So yeah, big opportunity for him. If he rallies this team, there won't be any question about getting that 5-year contract extension. That'll be back on the table somehow if he can somehow rally this team and turn them into winners again.
Well, that's what's great about the NFL. Week to week, so much can change, especially from one quarter of a season to another, especially at the beginning of the season. We've seen it time and time again. Teams start off strong, but a lot can happen in a short amount of time. Well, listen, we've broken down this loss and heard from DIrk Koetter and talked about the offense and the defense, but we got to wrap up. And
before we go there, we haven't talked about the elephant in the room.
Oh yeah?
And I'm going to throw a question at you. We can debate this.
Okay.
Should Mike Smith be fired? That's the question everybody wants. My Twitter feed has blown up with people wanting to fire Mike Smith. The defense is horrible. It's on pace to be the worst defense in the history of the NFL in terms of points allowed. The Bucs have given up 400 yards, 380 yards or more 19 times in the 36 games that he's coached. Should Mike Smith be fired?
My whole thing is that going to light a fire under this defense? Maybe. It might. And here's the dynamic with Mike Smith that's interesting to me, Roy. Remember just a few years ago, they had the strong finish. They won 9 games. The defense turned it around 2 years ago. Had a great finish. I think it was the last 5 games. Mike Smith was interviewing for head coaching jobs, but he stayed with the Bucs, and that was the big offseason narrative. Wow, they're really lucky to keep Mike Smith. And now a few years later, everybody wants to run him out of town. And you know what? He hasn't coached well, and this defense isn't playing well. But I don't really know how that's going to help this defense. But you know what? I'm going to say yeah. I think they do need to shake it up, because maybe that's what this defense needs. Maybe another coach isn't going to, turn it around, but maybe a new scheme, some new ideas, something has to shake it up. And it comes in a bye week where, there's to me, it could wake this defense up in some ways. I'm going to say, yeah, why not?
Well, when you present it that way, that maybe this team needs that kind of a wake up call and shake up. I don't know if I can argue. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference, because part of me says, well, who are you going to make coordinator? Who's going to call the plays now? Is it going to be Brenson Buckner? Remember when everybody thought that was the greatest move that the Bucs could possibly make in the offseason? What's that done?
Yeah.
So far, Jason Pierre-Paul and Gerald McCoy, of course, are the 2 people on the defensive front who are playing good football. Vinny Curry's had some moments too. No one else has really done anything special, including Vita Vea today in game 1. The linebackers had a horrible game. The secondary is just atrocious. And, I said it before, be careful what you wish for when you want a bunch of rookies in at defensive back in this league. It's usually not going to turn out well for you. And so I'm not sure that Mike Smith has much of a opportunity to do much with given what he's got, because I think Brent Grimes may have hit the wall. Brent Grimes did not look like Brent Grimes today. And I just
hasn't all year. All year.
Yeah, no, he hasn't. The games he's played, he has not looked good. Justin Evans, I said it to you last week at Raymond James during the Bucs Steelers game. Justin Evans is the Bucs' best defensive back right now, but it's not even close. So I don't know if Mike Smith or anybody else who's in that spot of his would be able to do much more, given the personnel they have. But I still think there's got to be an answer somewhere. I just don't know if firing a guy is going to do it, unless, of course, it wakes everybody up and gets guys to start playing well. Because what I saw today is something I very seldom see from this team, and that's those linebackers playing as badly as they played. That was the shocking thing most of all to me, was how bad the linebackers played.
I like when you ask me questions. I like when you turn the tables. That makes for good dialogue. I like when you surprise me like that, too. So you know what I'm going to do for you now, Roy Cummings? I'm going to surprise you, because you know what time it is. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
This is the 3 and out segment, which is a concept the Buccaneers defense doesn't know anything about right now.
Well, you took the ball and ran with that. I like it. I like it. You know what? We've kind of groomed this 3 and out segment, because it's football, it's Bucs, but then we kind of expand to the NFL. But we always end with something everybody can enjoy, and we know that our Few Extra Bucs podcast is growing every week, but we're trying to grow our audience. So the last question is always something kind of non-football related, kind of pop culture stuff. By the way, I've taken an informal poll, and everybody I know likes Billy Joel better than Elton John. But you know what? You guys can have your opinion. That's why we have a podcast, and that's why this is so much fun.
Everybody don't know what they're talking about, pal.
All right. I want to ask you this, Roy.
Yeah.
Because you don't know the questions coming here. All right. We talked about covering bad games like this. Okay. Besides this game, you've covered the NFL for decades, long, long time. You covered some bad games, some bad losses. What's the worst loss you've ever covered? One that just sticks out.
There was a 48 to something very similar to this one loss in Oakland. John Gruden's the year after John Gruden allowed Warren Sapp to get away and John Lynch to get away. That was a pretty bad one. That was about as bad as it gets, because it was pretty evident right then and there that it was when the Bucs started going with older players more often than not. I guess it was 2003, and it was just disastrous. That was about as bad a game as I remember. It was just an embarrassment for a team that was as good as that Bucs team was supposed to have been, to have fallen apart like that. So that's the one that sticks out to me, I guess.
What about the Colts comeback?
That one just made me mad because it was Monday night. Deadlines are ridiculous. I had my game story written at halftime. Halftime's over, and I just need the Bucs to polish this thing off, and they couldn't do it. So that was bad for a lot of reasons, but but primarily from a standpoint of a sports writer on a Monday Night Football deadline. That was pretty bad for sure.
That was torturous. I mean, that was back, if you don't remember that, Bucs fans, back in October 6th of 2003. The score was 35-14 with 5:09 left. 35-14, and the Colts would win 38-35 in overtime.
But yeah, you're right. But you know what? I'm going to amend my answer. You know what the worst loss was? The loss to the Rams in the NFC Championship game. The Bert Emanuel play.
1999.
Shouldn't have lost the game. And so much happened as a result of that loss. People losing their jobs. The catch rule. That was the beginning of the catch rule debacle, which continues to rage on throughout the NFL. That was probably the toughest loss. Not in terms of just downright beatings. You have beatings like today, and then you have losses in games where they probably shouldn't have lost, and they lost because somebody else screwed up. It wasn't a mistake of a player. It was a mistake of an official and a league that had to admit it the next day and send the Buccaneers a letter saying, oh, yeah, by the way, we screwed that play up. Sorry, you should be in the NFC Championship, or you should be alive in the playoffs, and you're not.
Tony Dungy, who was recently inducted in the Ring of Honor, I heard an interview with him recently, and they said they never, had that call before, and they felt bad about it. And he's like, yeah, the only time they had that call was when we lost the NFC Championship game. A call like that. So, yeah, that was a tough one for sure. All right, our second question, it's a quarter of the season is almost done, okay? For a lot of teams, it is done. If we could redo our Super Bowl picks, what would they be? You can have a mulligan, a do-over. What would you have as your Super Bowl team?
Well, you can't not go with the Rams, right?
Right.
So I would pick them. And
AFC is
the
tough.
AFC is tough.
Yeah, it's all over the place. It's watered down.
It really is. You know what? I'll still go with the Patriots. Because
it's hard. It's hard not to.
Just because they'll figure out a way. In that division, it won't be trouble. It won't be hard to get into the playoffs. And they'll figure out a way. They're all about the playoffs anyway. They're like a hockey team or a basketball team in the NFL because they know they're going to the playoffs. It's just a matter of what do we do when we get there. So I'll still stick with them. But the Rams look good.
All right. I'm going to say, Justin, who do you have? You could have a do-over because obviously we all need a do-over because I picked the Falcons and the Texans, and that's not going to happen. So I don't know if you want a do-over for your Super Bowl predictions.
Well, I know I picked Chargers and Rams in the Super Bowl. I can't remember who I picked to win, but the Rams are clearly the best team in the NFL right now. So I'll stick with the Rams. And as far as Chargers aren't impressing me too much, I may switch like Roy to the Patriots. I know they kind of haven't looked great, but today they totally embarrassed the Dolphins. And last year they started off 2-2 and made it to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to switch over to the Patriots and Rams.
All right, I'm going to be different because I want to be different because I'm usually different from you guys. Not that you guys always agree. It's not fair, but I'm going to pick the Saints to win.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to predict the Saints. I think I was real impressed by what they did in the Meadowlands. I think that the secondary is going to get better, and that was a big problem for them in Atlanta. And frankly, a lot of their games initially with the Bucs as well. I'm going to predict the Saints. I don't know about the Patriots. I can't put my money on Andy Reid. They always start strong, and then you know what happens.
Right.
Jaguars, Blake Bortles, I'm sorry. I'm going to do this, guys, because if this happens, I'll look like a genius, and it probably won't happen, and I won't be a genius.
Are you going with the Bengals?
Saints, Bengals.
Oh, I knew it.
Saints. And I liked what the Bengals did in Atlanta. That was an impressive win on the road. But the AFC is tough. I mean, I think if it was my house I was betting on or my car, it would be the Patriots because the Patriots are going to turn it around.
Right.
But I'm just trying to be different, I guess. All right, last one, and it's pop culture, guys. Okay? And Justin Thomas has helped me with some of these, and he doesn't. We've kind of made a list, Roy, but he doesn't know which one I picked out of this list. A lot of good football movies over the years, right? I actually like baseball movies. I think there's better baseball movies than football movies. So baseball might be an easier question. But what is your favorite football movie of all time? What's the best football movie ever?
Boy, that's a tough one. I think the original, Brian's song's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But I think maybe the original Longest Yard.
Yeah,
I would probably have to take that. Am I missing one?
Not the Adam Sandler one?
What's that?
Not the Adam Sandler one?
No, not the Adam Sandler one.
Burt Reynolds was in that one, right?
Didn't he have a cameo in the second one? But it was in the first one.
Yeah, he's in both.
He was in both. That's right.
Yeah. But he was tough in the first one because he wanted to actually do the scenes. He didn't want to just have a stunt double. He was hard hitting in that one. Yeah.
North Dallas 40 wasn't bad.
Oh, I like North Dallas 40 a lot. Yeah.
All right.
What do you think, Justin?
I haven't seen all of them. There's a lot, although you'll say there's more baseball ones. I think the one that has stuck out with me the most would be Friday Night Lights. I thought that was just a really good depiction of high school Texas football.
Great book.
It was, yeah, and it also spawned a really good TV show. So I'm going to stick with Friday Night Lights.
TV show was excellent.
It was really good.
Almost as good as The Bachelorette, but it's close second.
Yeah, almost as good, not quite.
I'm going to give you a dark horse, okay? I know it's not all true, but I loved Rudy. Rudy was great.
Rudy was good.
And Roy's probably shaking his head.
No.
But Remember the Titans was good. I like Remember the Titans. That was a pretty good one. One of my favorites though is I like the All the Right Moves, man. I thought that was a good one. Tom Cruise back in the day got kicked off the team. I liked All the Right Moves.
You're right. That's good. That's good.
You know which one I just thought of too? It's a little hokey, but it's got one of the best speeches ever, and it ties into last week's question. But Any Given Sunday with Al Pacino was really good.
Yeah, except it's Al Pacino. Now, if De Niro had played the head coach, it would have been better.
Oh my God! We got to do a poll. We got to do a poll on Pewter Pirates. We got to do Longest Yard. We'll do Rudy, Remember the Titans, Friday Night Lights, and maybe All the Right Moves.
And of course, ask them if they want to put in another one. We Are Marshall wasn't bad. That's college football.
That was a pretty good one.
That's a very good one too.
You know what the millennials love though? You see this pop up, that Varsity Blues one. They love the Varsity Blues.
Oh gosh, I remember that one. That one wasn't that good.
John Voight as the crusty old man. That's how DIrk Koetter feels right now, probably. Bring it all full circle. Well, listen, guys, that's good stuff. I appreciate it. We'll see. We'll continue during the bye week. We'll get some sound this week and talk Buccaneer football. But like Roy says, it's not over, man. 2-2. Falcons lose. Saints win. Carolina off. But a lot of football to be played. Still 3 quarters of the year. We'll see what happens. But for Justin Thomas, our producer, for Roy Cummings, our Buccaneer insider, for our title sponsors, House of Brews and Sea Dog Brewing Company, I'm Mike Nabors. This has been another rendition of A Few Extra Bucs. Remember, subscribe to pewterpirates.com. It's free. Thanks for logging on. We'll see you next time.